Welcome back to the Beyond Blues podcast. My name is Zach Kinsilla. I'm joined with Beck Markarian. If this is your first time, welcome. If you caught us last time in episode one, thanks for tuning in. Um, Lots of big stuff going on this week that we're going to get into. But Beck, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Been a pretty stressful weekend. Have a few exams coming up this week, but we'll get through them. How are you, Zach?
Doing well, pretty much the same. Caught some of the Blues game that I know we were talking about earlier, and we're going to get into that. But yeah, it's just been a busy week and busy week of school. But yeah, that game that we just caught, Blues fall 4-1 to the Colorado Avalanche, and yeah, it was a tough game, first game after the big incident last night. And yeah, what are your thoughts? I don't know how much of it you caught, but what were your initial thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I didn't catch the third. I watched a good bit of the first and second, but looked like from what I heard, especially Benner was kind of on his game. We don't. It's not too rare that he's not. He's kind of having an up and down year, but Benner was good. I think a few guys looked pretty solid, but the team just got dominated by the better team.
Yeah, definitely have kind of the same to say about that. But before we kind of get into some of the individual performances and just the game overall, I'm not sure for most of you guys listening, assuming a lot of you guys are in the St. Louis area. Beck and I are not, so we don't get to catch the Valley Sports broadcast unless it's on ESPN Plus, which today it was not. So both of us tuned in on NHL Network, and let's just say it was something else. It was hosted by what's his name again, Beck? Or who was the guy that was kind of the lead
I
commentator he sent me?
I'll have to pull it up here quickly. I have no idea. He's just God. I could go on for a while about him. No, today it just felt like wait, let me find him first.
Well, while you're finding him, yeah, it was just, I mean, I understand the Avs are like a better team than us and all this stuff going on, and obviously our season hasn't been great, but like, oh my gosh, can you be any more biased and like, can you even give the Blues any credit for, I mean, they didn't do a ton of things well, but like, it's actually like we were watching the Altitude Sports broadcast. Like, it was unbelievable.
I think it's Keith Urizari.
Yeah,
I'm not
sounds about
too
right.
sure. I definitely botched up. I pulled a biz and botched up that last name, but uh yeah, it seemed like he was kind of the one who was a little too into it and a little too loud. Definitely the louder one on the broadcast. Um, and it just seemed like he was calling people by their nicknames, like especially the Avs players, like calling him Nate the Great and
Yeah,
just all
like, what
this
was that
stuff. It
about?
just it I don't understand. I I was listening and just while I'm studying, I'm overhearing it and I'm just like this. I have to put it on mute. It was horrible. The
Yeah.
bias, it just seemed like, and this, like, I swear, if this was coming from any other fan or any other fan of another team, I feel like they'd say the same thing. It's just pretty, pretty interesting broadcast. Not the biggest fan of it. Had to put it on mute, especially because that was not too good.
Yeah, I mean, same things as you were just saying. Like, the whole thing felt weird. Something you didn't mention that I was noticing, it was just so awkward. Like, there was bits and pieces from that Arizari guy, and then I think the other guy in the background was like Johnston, like one of the analysts on NHL Network, but he's not a broadcaster and he's not like a color commentator. So it was just really, really awkward silence for a lot of periods of the game too, where like
Mhm.
he would say, "Oh, like so and so gets the puck down low." No like fill in words, no nothing like how we're used to like Darren Pang kind of just chipping in, just like with color commentary, just like keeps the broadcast interesting. It was so awkward, like you could hear a pin drop at points. It was like nobody's saying anything, and it's just like the sounds of the game, like the puck and like the skates and everything, which I enjoy, but like it was just so weird. Yeah, so not a fan, and I mean I don't know the general like hockey fans perception of games on NHL Network, but yeah, I was not impressed, and I definitely hope hope to never have to watch Blues game on there anytime soon. But let's get into this game. So. I know both of us caught it like a little bit. As we mentioned, Benner was strong really throughout the entire game. I mean, Blues obviously fall by a 3 goal deficit, but kind of much of the same that we've been used to this season, where Benner kind of the score could have been maybe 6 or 7, and Benner keeps us in the game. And I didn't really know what to expect from the Blues going into this game with everything that has happened over the last 24 hours. First period, very, very clear that we were dominated, but strong second. And then the third, special teams kind of, the Avs did their thing. And as soon as, it was kind of over. But were there any players that kind of stuck out to you from today's game that you thought had a good game?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously I mentioned Benner earlier. I think he is just the rock of our team, pretty much day in, day out. I thought Blay, nice seeing Blay on the score sheet, especially since he now passes Vladdy on goals since the trade. So that's pretty nice. But thought Blay looked solid. Like I said, just couldn't really pay too much attention to it. I know you mentioned Torpachenko looking pretty solid, but yeah, I think we just got outworked. Like it was obvious that they were the better team. Like this this group now without especially without Cookie and O'Reilly, like it's hard to really get back into special teams and really just finding your groove, especially like if it happened less than 24 hours ago. So yeah, they'll be better come next few games. Today they just had to kind of get used to not having those two guys, and I feel like that showed, and the Avs took advantage of that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you could tell. As I mentioned, kind of strong second period, a little bit of a pushback from the Blues after just an embarrassing first. I thought there was maybe a chance going into the third that we could maybe see them tie it up, and then kind of once Nichushkin scored that goal, it took the life out of the team, and it was extremely quiet inside Enterprise Center, and just the team looked depleted. And I mean, they were playing short for the whole game. I mean, I think Buchnevich went out in the first period, so getting into some injury news, which we'll go into later. But in terms of this game, the Blues lose Pavel Buchnevich from the first period. I believe that was a
Lower body.
let's take a look. Yeah, lower body injury there, and then Logan Brown also fell to the ice, cut his face, and he did not return. But that was in the third. And then post game, we got a little bit more information on the Pavel Buchnevich injury. He will not be traveling to Ottawa with the team. Torrey Krug, who did not play today, he will travel with the team. So it appears that his let's take a look. Lower body injury that he suffered against Florida is not as serious as they had originally assumed. So good news that Krug will be traveling with the team. But yeah, unfortunately, Vucinovic, I mean, he's already been out of the lineup a couple times now this season. So that's really unfortunate. I mean, he's like one of our best guys, and we'll see. So it's really going to be some of those guys that we were mentioning earlier with like Toropchenko. I thought he had a really good game. Um, I was telling Beck like maybe he could get pushed up the lineup with some of these, obviously with the trades of Acciari and O'Reilly, and now with some of these injuries. Toropchenko, I just think the shoulder surgery is behind him. He is just looking very, very strong on the puck. I mean, he made some really, really great plays today, and he reminds me in a way. He definitely. I don't know what I see his like ceiling is. However, he makes those Tarasenko-esque moves, like drives to the net, where Tarasenko would like dip a shoulder and like make those drives to the net, like we were used to on like the vintage Tarasenko days, where he was like on the wing, faked, and then went short side on the goalie. Like Porchenko shows those signs, so I definitely think he is the next guy to get to move up the lineup. So I do want to recap the 3 game win streak. Unfortunately, it comes to an end today. However, before that 3 game win streak, the coaching staff changed to a new forecheck tactic. So the Blues decided to implement a different tactical forecheck in which all 5 skaters on the ice more aggressive, now allowing a free outlet by the opposition when the Blues aren't able to possess the puck in the defensive zone. And then Craig Berube said it may not always translate to extensive and sustained puck possession, but it does allow for a flowing transition by the other team, which in essence tends to lead to more odd man rushes, and the players on the opposition turn around and retrieve it more. So I wanted to hear your perspective. I mean, as I mentioned in episode one, I didn't grow up playing organized hockey. I'm obviously familiar with different types of forechecking styles, but I wanted to hear your perspective on this change, if you were even aware of it, and kind of the impact that you maybe saw during those 3 games that the Blues played and they won, and if you saw a noticeable difference.
Yeah, so I didn't really know that we changed the forecheck, to be honest. I heard them talking about it earlier this game, but I never really noticed too much. But it would explain why you kind of get a little more success, especially with that 3 game win streak, because I mean, like you asked, like for a hockey perspective, if you're a winger or center, like someone coming up the ice and you see like a guy or two kind of or in your own zone coming up the ice, see a guy coming at you, you kind of panic a little bit. Like I'm sure these pros like they know what to do, obviously. Like we all like the good players will figure out what to do, but even then, like if you're a little more aggressive, gives them less time to make a play, and I think that's kind of the goal here. It sounds like Chief has some faith in Benner and our goalies to give up these odd man rushes and to trust them to make that initial save, and then once the guys get back to kind of clear it. But I think it's nice for the Blues to be able to implement this now, and then obviously if you get burnt a few more times during a game, then change back. But it looks like it's pretty effective. I know that's kind of what my team wants to do whenever we want to play that way. So I think that will lead to some success for the most part, and we can take whatever we want win wise. But that does it seems like something wasn't working, and if Berube felt the need to do this, then I trust him. I think he's a good coach, and giving the guys less time and space is a lot better than giving them space to make a play, especially these good teams. So
Yeah, definitely. And I know it took the first game that it was implemented was in the first game back from the All-Star break against Arizona last Saturday that we previewed. That was kind of a sloppy game. Blues ended up giving up a 3-goal lead in the third period. I don't know if I really noticed it as much in that game. However, in the next game against Florida, that was a very, very dominating victory from the Blues. I definitely could tell the difference. And then they followed it up with another strong performance against a top team in New Jersey. Obviously, they were missing Jack Hughes. However, that's still a very talented team. And in that third period, especially, I really noticed they shut down the Devils very, very well. And yeah, so great to hear your perspective on that. And we'll see if this change can lead to some more wins. Unfortunately, not a great result today. And um, Colorado's a very, very deep team, and they're getting their guys back from injury. But yeah, but go because of this 3-game win streak. Beck and I were a little nervous. I know we were making some jokes back and forth, like hoping that like this 3-game win streak um, doesn't make Doug Armstrong rethink how he treats the deadline. But unfortunately, or fortunately for us, it did not change how he felt as he decided to make a big move last night that we are going to get into. However, before we get into that, just to recap some of the last parts of the injury news and roster moves. We touched on Torrey Krug. He's going to be traveling with the team. However, Brandon Saad, in the same game against Florida, he suffered an upper body injury and was placed on IR. Jake Neighbors was recalled from Springfield, and he has played the last 2 games. I've been impressed with him. I thought he was the NHL Network at least thought he was very, very noticeable. I mean, like I said, that was kind of peaking up and down at the game, but they made it sound like he had a really strong performance. Do you think the same? I don't know what you made of him today.
yeah, no neighbors. He looked pretty solid today. I thought he was just hard on the puck, just used his body, used his strength. I mean, he's going to be more of a power forward type of player uh, coming in coming into the lineup in the future, especially once he gets more reps and whatnot. But I think he was kind of showing flashes of that. I noticed like within one of his first first few shifts, he took the puck hard to the net, got a shot off. So I mean, for your youth, you're just asking him to grow a little bit, especially in the back half of this year. So hopefully, he keep brings the confidence up, and they'll wear off on a bunch of other rookies as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then wrapping up some of the roster moves, Nikita Alexandrov and Matthew Highmore also recalled from Springfield after the trade that took place last night, with the Blues losing both Ryan O'Reilly and Noah Chari. Matthew Highmore has 46 points in 47 games with the Thunderbirds, 12 goals, 34 assists this season. So yeah, I thought we'd get a little bit into where we might see him slot in. I mean, we're a little familiar now with Alexandrov's game. I'm really excited to see him back up. Now with Buchnevich not traveling with the team, I think there's a very good chance that we see both of them. And who knows if Logan Brown, depending on, I mean, I know he just got stitched up, so he's probably not going to be out, but we never know with Logan Brown. So he might,
Yeah.
something else might happen in that game that we don't know about. But before the season, one of the guys that we mentioned in the last episode, STL Blues Prospects on Instagram, he was very on Highmore's side, and he was really excited about him. And I know we went back and forth. I guess he had talked to some guys in Vancouver that are fans, and I guess some Blackhawks fans, and they said he's a really intriguing player. Kind of reminds me of like a Noah Chari guy. Maybe not as skilled, but just like an energy guy and very, very hard worker. So, and he has some points this season. I mean, obviously down in the minors, but I'm actually excited if we get the chance to see him. I don't know if you also heard a little bit about him, but hopefully we might see him on the fourth line. But yeah, do you know anything about Highmore?
I really don't. I guess the only thing I know about him was when he scored against the Blues. I feel like a couple games when he was on the Blackhawks, and I really just disliked his game. But that's a good thing for us because that shows that he's kind of like a grittier player, loves to use his body and stuff like that. So if I'm sure if STL Blues prospects is high on him, then I am too because I he's kind of hitting it out of the ballparks at some points with some of these takes from these guys. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited. I'm excited to just see new faces, see how some guys can work in our lineup. If it doesn't work, then it's fine. But it'll be nice to hopefully see some success from these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we go into the big news from last night, Ivan Barbashev has been playing a lot of first line minutes. He's been on the second line on the first, um, been on the penalty kill, been on the power play at times. And yeah, so earlier in the week, two sources, both David Pagnotta and Kevin Weeks, had reported, beginning with Pagnotta of the fourth period. On Sunday night, he said that the price seems to be a second round draft pick and a prospect. And then a tweet from Kevin Weeks reported Barbashev is drawing plenty of interest from multiple teams. Return could be first or second round pick plus prospect. Salary very attractive to different suitors. Blues could retain some to sweeten offers and return. The thought of Ivan Barbashev fetching a first round pick and the Blues ending up with four would be insane. I mean, it pretty much seems evident at this point that he's the next person gone. Um, I thought, I thought he would have gone before O'Reilly. I thought teams were jumping on him like now, and the fact that O'Reilly and Acciari are gone, we in the last episode kind of thought Acciari was maybe one that could get moved, but now with Barbashev kind of being the last big guy, are there and the thought of us getting a first round pick back? I mean, how insane does this sound? And we've bounced some ideas back with each other on if the Blues were to land four first round picks, what they might do with it. So, with these two tweets coming out, what are your thoughts on this potential return that the Blues could get?
Very well could be a Barclay Goodrow type scenario here. I believe the Bolts got a first from him, if I'm not
Hmm.
mistaken. Then I know I've mentioned to some of my friends who I talk with who are fans around the NHL, and it sounds like that's kind of their thoughts too. They think that we could get a first from them. I think the more likely option that we should be ready for would be a second and a prospect. I I'd be very surprised if some of more than maybe two teams give us a first. I'm thinking the only team that would really give us a first would be Boston, who's going completely balls to the wall. They're going all in this year. I was talking to a few of my friends who are Boston fans, and they said that he would slot perfectly on their third line right wing. I mean, he's a guy who could play any position at forward, I think. And to hear all this about Barbie, I think that's all we need to hear. He's a solid player. I think he has that Stanley Cup experience, and he could really help out, especially the Bruins. As much as I kind of hate to say it,
Mhm.
um, but I think I think Army will most likely retain half the salary. It's not like we're going to add anyone, especially like probably by deadline. So I think just get as much as you possibly can. I don't. It really just depends on the prospect. If he's kind of like the guy who might crack the lineup in a couple of years, then get the first and just be safe. But I trust Army and his staff to get the job done and get the best deal that we possibly could, especially with his or lower than like a 2.5 mil salary. So I think a lot of teams will be jumping at that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, Boston definitely one of the suitors that I could see him going to. I think with the move last night from the Leafs, this really gets the Lightning. I mean, I think this gets them going. They're going to need to make a move. I mean, we can't, looking down the lineup for the Leafs, I mean, Matthews, Tavares, O'Reilly, and that third line, I think it's Engvall and, if I'm not mistaken, Calle Yarncrow. That's a really good third line, and I do think if we can just get one more piece like a Barbashev on the third line for the Lightning, and we can match that with Colton, Paul, and a Barbashev. I mean that's a better third line than theirs, but with O'Reilly, that does kind of scare me a little bit. Um, I think if we can get Barbie and he can play center, and I mean that would be a really interesting first round matchup with Barbashev and O'Reilly going head to head at the three center spot. I just think Tampa is still my pick for where he goes. And there was tons of scouts at the game today. Tampa had two reps at Enterprise Center representing them, and I just think it's bound to happen at some point. I just really believe. I mean, Tampa. I think Nemestikov's still a guy that they could send back to us. I don't really want that. I think another name that's getting thrown around in a lot of rumors that I don't know if it would be a part of a Barbashev trade, but if the Lightning are to make another trade, Cal Foote has kind of been taken over in terms of like our depth charts by Nick Perbix. So he's kind of a guy that the Lightning are looking to ship off, and that intrigues me in a way where maybe Cal Foote's a guy that could be in a trade package for Barbashev. I don't He doesn't really have a ton of value, and they're kind of got a log jam on the left side, so it could be really interesting. That would be an awesome return to get him back. I don't think it happens, but I think a Nemesnikov to be thrown into a deal with him would be very likely. But yeah, so I think Barbashev, I mean, it's a matter of days now. I think a deal is very, very close, and yeah, it's a shame, but you got to
Yeah,
sell, and luckily Armstrong's doing it. So, what were you saying?
yeah, no, with Army's recent trades, I think we should expect something here within the week, honestly.
Yeah,
Especially if because you don't want to play too many games with Barbie. Don't want to risk an injury and stuff like that. So not only for Barbie's sake, but for the trade benefits sake. So yeah,
yeah,
I think
absolutely.
Doug has something up his sleeves. Um, so it'll be an interesting probably couple weeks until the trade deadline. So
Yeah. All right, well, let's get into the biggest event that has happened this week, and that is the trade that took place last night. Ryan O'Reilly and Noah Chari are now members of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And in exchange, St. Louis received prospect Mikhail Abramov, forward Adam Gaudette, the Leafs' 2023 first round pick, the Ottawa Senators' 2023 third round pick, and Toronto's 2024 second round pick. O'Reilly, who's going to be a pending unrestricted free agent at the end of the season, carries a $7.5 million cap hit, and the Blues will be retaining 50% of O'Reilly's salary, while Minnesota, the third team involved, will retain an additional 25%. O'Reilly had 12 goals, 19 points in 40 games this season with the Blues, and it is officially three captains now lost in the last 7 years. So I want to hear your initial thoughts on seeing the trade last night, and then we'll just go more in depth to it. So let's hear it.
Yeah, so just out of the blue, I got a couple texts asking if I saw what happened, and they told me to check Twitter. So I see the trade. I was hoping it would be O'Reilly and Barbie for Nice, but that was getting a little out of hand. That was kind of a stretch, but no, seeing what we got, a first, second, third, couple AHL guy or Gaudette who's in the AHL this year, and Abramov. I think that's pretty darn good for a rental. So a couple rentals actually. So I was kind of surprised to see Acciari in it, but it does make sense for the Leafs. He's a kind of like a not shut down, but he's a scoring wing or scoring bottom six guy. That's kind of something that they've missed in postseasons before this. And I think he can. I mean, he kills penalties, he does all that stuff, and to have that complimenting you in the bottom six with their youth, and it looks like they're just going to have a lot of young guys and then a few older vets. So I think that's perfect for them. I think Toronto, they got a really nice deal. And I think, honestly, for all three teams involved, that's a win. All three teams, they need something in their own retrospective ways. So I think Toronto got a couple guys to fit or solidify their forward group. And I think the Blues got a 2023 first, which is fantastic. We saw that coming with O'Reilly, but to also get a second and a third, all without any conditions on it, I think that's very nice, especially with a prospect and an AHL guy. So I was kind of surprised. I'm not too sure if we're going to see Gaudette up in the lineup this year. I'm sure we will see him once he gets settled in, but uh, yeah, I'm not too sure. But yeah, for all three teams, I think it's a great deal and for everyone. So how about you? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think it happened 11 o'clock Eastern last night, so I definitely like getting off work and kind of just going throughout my evening was not expecting it. I feel like there was really no build up, and all of a sudden I just check my phone after dinner, and all of a sudden I'm seeing all the hearing so and so to so and so. I'm hearing the seeing all like the Sarah Valley tweets and all that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is so like random. Like it's literally 11:30, and yeah, I was blown away. I did not think Acciari was going to be a part of the deal. I know O'Reilly had been rumored to the Leafs for weeks, so seeing him go there wasn't a surprise to me. That was actually my prediction, so happy about that. And yeah, as I was just talking about, I mean, this just makes so much sense for the Leafs, and I mean that center spot is so deep now. It had been a rough season for O'Reilly. We both know this. Blues fans know this, but I mean, he's looked pretty solid since coming back from that foot injury, and um, I mean, we know what O'Reilly can do in the playoffs. I mean, he's going to take his game to another level, and just the fact that he's going to be the third line center like blows my mind. So, I mean, that matchup. I mean, he's an elite two-way center. The fact that he's playing on the third line, and they could face a team like Tampa. They're not really going to face anybody else. It seems like, but it just makes their team so deep and add Acciari to the mix and just makes either the third or fourth line. We know he can play both. He'll probably start on the fourth, and um, that bottom six now just is insane. So Dubas has kind of made it clear like this is an all-in year. I mean, O'Reilly is clearly a rental. Um, and as we talked about last week, the Leafs have to make it out of the first round. I mean, there is absolutely no excuse. You add O'Reilly. Um, if it doesn't happen, I don't know if you blow up the core. I don't know what happens, but Kyle Dubas has made it clear like we're all in. I was a little bit surprised that this move happened right now. I thought their defense was going to get addressed first. However, like Muzzin's been out all year. Some guys have really stepped up. Liljegren has stepped up. Sandin has been very impressive. Their D has actually been very solid. However, it had been rumored that they were going to make some adjustments to the D. So, kind of surprised in that regard that the O'Reilly deal happened before that because I thought they were going to make a deal defensively and then see what they had to work with, like cap wise. But yeah, maybe they feel pretty solid in their D and they're not going to do anything about it. And the way they've been playing this season, I think they're pretty good. So I'm happy about the trade. I don't know anything about Abramov. I'll definitely reach out to our boy SEO Wiz prospects about him. Gaudette, I remember just from when he was on the Canucks is probably what I remember him the best from. I know he played a little on the Hawks, but I would assume we'll see him. I mean, considering injuries and I mean we're losing more and more guys, so just from like trades, he has NHL experience, and I feel like at this point, a lot of our bottom six is kind of made up of guys that don't have a ton of it. So I feel like it's kind of going to be a revolving door. And as we talked about earlier in the episode, I mean, I'm really excited to see just different combinations of guys. I'm excited to see new faces. I want to see him in the lineup. Absolutely. So hopefully, like you mentioned, he gets all settled in. I definitely need to see like a 3 game trial of it. Um, I don't know where he would play, but bottom six, I'd assume. But yeah, I'd love to see him up here.
Yeah,
Um,
the big thing I remember from him, he kind of brings the energy if he gets a goal. So I think that'll be pretty funny to see him get
yeah, he has
all
elite
hyped.
celly game.
He does. He really does. So I'm excited. I kind of saw the name, and I mean, we have a few old Blackhawks on our team now, so that's pretty interesting. But I think he'll make his way in the lineup. I think he'll probably be in for the rest of the year, unless if he just doesn't seem to fit right for some reason. But I think the two guys we got from them, will be perfect for kind of just where we're going for the rest of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get into everybody's talking about it. He's going to be back. He's going to be back. There was a press conference today with Doug Armstrong that he both alluded to. The question of if O'Reilly he would be interested in bringing back. He also talked about loading up on draft picks. So starting off with the draft picks quote from Armstrong in today's press conference, he said, "I don't know how it's all going to work out. Um, I'm going to use those picks or they might be gone before their name is called in the draft. We need to retrench with players 25 to 26 years old with term on their contract so they can grow with our core of players." And then in regard to Armstrong on the potential of bringing O'Reilly back, he said, "I don't want to talk about Ryan, but I have nameplates up on our board and I never throw them away. I never say never with a player returning, especially high character, but there's no guarantee they may fall in love with their new team." So that first quote that I read, with him saying we need to retrench with players 25 to 26 years old with term, that makes me think that it kind of rules out the idea of him returning because he doesn't really fit the description of what Armstrong wants for the future of this team. I don't know if you saw those and you thought the same, but I wanted to hear your thoughts on the potential of him coming back in the offseason. I know we touched on it last episode, but with these quotes coming out from the presser, I just thought it was something that we could talk about again. So wanted to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm bringing O'Reilly back. I could kind of see it, um, which is pretty surprising because I feel like most of these guys, like, they don't really want to come back. And I think people were referring to, gosh, this one or Doug Waite situation. I think the Blues traded Doug Waite and then he came back that summer or
Yep,
something like that. So I'm not too sure. I think obviously we all have no idea, but Leafs they're not going to sign a or they're not going to sign O'Reilly after this year unless he takes a major pay cut, which I can't see. And it looks like a few guys on the Blues are kind of Shen was talking to I don't know who Shen was talking to, but I saw a quote where Shen like was hoping that O'Reilly came back and kind of smiled after. So I mean, it kind of looks like someone might O'Reilly might be back, but I doubt it. I wouldn't mind him back. Obviously, like he's just a great person. I think they actually like built a house in St. Louis or something like that just recently, or bought a new house at least.
they did.
So yeah, I think um I don't know if they kind of want to go through that stuff again. I think he could be back. I would say honestly the best percentage I'd give it was maybe a 50-50. Like maybe a little more, but I'd just say then it just depends on how much we offer and something like that too. Like if we don't want to pay him too much, then I could see him not coming back and getting a deal with more term and more years as well. So, um, yeah, I think it's a pretty interesting thing to think at, and I think he loves the city, especially the city that gave him his first cup and our first cup as well. So I think we could see him back, but I wouldn't say more than maybe like a 50% chance, personally.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, kind of what we were just talking about with that quote where Armstrong's looking for this certain age range of players. And I know we're not going into this full rebuild. We're kind of looking to do a retool. Um, I just think with the number of players locked up in like 29 years old to beyond, like even if it's a 3 to 4 year deal, I mean, and we would assume we would hope that the AAV is down. I just like and I know O'Reilly's roots in St. Louis. Like, I know about the house thing, and he's said all the right things. Wants to be back in St. Louis. Armstrong loved him. Everybody loved him here. I mean, he was a hero, and I just, I just don't know if I want to give out another contract to another older player, even if it's like a 4 mil for like 3 or 4 years. Like, he's what, 31 now or 30? And
Yeah.
I just would love to see that money go somewhere else and fit the bill of the guys that we were just talking about, the 25 to 26-year-olds with term. I know, I mean, he was our captain, and that's a huge role to fill for guys like Thomas who have just so much more responsibility now. But I think today's game really showed me, and I watched a decent amount. So, like, Braden Shen's game today, he, before the third period where the whole team kind of shut down, he almost played today like he knows this is his team, in my opinion. He was finishing checks like he always does, but for some reason, I just saw a different Braden Shen that I hadn't seen in a while. He's been a solid player this year. I think say like 16 or 17 goals, but like he just looked different in my eyes today for some reason. I know that quote that he said about O'Reilly. I mean, they're buddies, but he can say that to the reporters, but I just felt like he knew today that like this is his team now. I mean, and it is now for the remainder of the season, but I just get that sense that O'Reilly's not going to come back, and we have a guy that's up there in age that is our leader now, and I think Armstrong recognizes that. He's like, I know that there's another leader in the soccer room who has the capabilities of doing what O'Reilly did in an essence. Obviously, they're two very different style players, but in an essence, his leadership with Braden Shen. So I think I would love to see that money used somewhere else to bring in these young guys and help quick start that retool. I just would love to see some new faces. Um, But yeah, with this idea that we don't bring Ryan O'Reilly back, I want to get into our last discussion for the day. We're predicting who might be the next captain of the St. Louis Blues. I know we were just touching on one guy that almost seems like a shoo-in for it, but I wanted to hear your thoughts on who you might see being the next captain of the Blues. Yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah, so actually before that, I have one more thing to add to what we were just talking about. So, STL Blues Views, his handle on Twitter. I know he has some controversial takes and some people are 50-50 on him.
Very
I
controversial
don't
takes.
very controversial. I don't mind him. I think his stuff is pretty funny, but and pretty interesting. So
No,
he
I agree.
said
I agree.
so he listened to the to Doug Armstrong's press conference and he says he's willing to use the first that we could get, or a couple of the first that we could get for current talent, but only if it's long-term players with term. So if we get maybe a 23 to 26-year-old guy with 5 years on his contract, which is very hard to find, so I highly doubt that we give that up. Then if we are giving up those picks, at least we get something like that. And I was kind of nervous because uh, I believe Lou came out or JR came out with something saying how he might want to give out give up a couple of these first for some guys, but after seeing that, I kind of feel like either the player we use for those will be a very solid talent or we just use them to get a couple picks. So I feel like can't really hurt either way. But going to the captain thing, going back to this, I think it's Shen. I He has the term on his contract and all that. I think, you know, I think it'll be Thomas's time after that, after Shenner, but I don't think it's Tom's just yet. So I Shen works his butt off. He literally hits everything in his way. I think he has the heart to be the next captain. I think he'll be a great captain as well. Depending on when we name it out, which will probably be before next year.
Yeah, that's my choice for sure. I know people throw out Robert Thomas's name a lot, and you look across the league and you see a lot of these guys that were in the same situation as Robert Thomas. I look at Nick Suzuki in Montreal. I look at Brady Tkachuk in Ottawa as those young guys that took the reins and became the captain. Um, there was a quote from Doug Armstrong that came out a while ago. This was probably before Ryan O'Reilly was named the captain, but I know for sure that this was said. And he said, "You name the captain based on who deserves it right now. You don't name a captain for who is going to deserve it in the future. Or like you don't name like he's the captain of the future. You name who deserves it right now, and that is 100% Braden Shen. And I think that anybody that disagrees hasn't watched the Blues play for the last 2 years, and it almost seemed like he has been more of a captain than O'Reilly at some points. I mean that in a way that they both have very different styles of leadership. Um, I love the type of player that Braden Shen is, and I love that type. I love the idea of us having Braden Shen's personality as our captain. I like the guy that's going to go out, the David Backes that's going to throw hands with somebody like a Jonathan Toews back in the day and like massive hits. Like I love our captain being a tough guy, just like with St. Louis being a city that appreciates guys like Braden Shen. Um, like I said, nothing against Ryan O'Reilly. I thought he's done a great job being a captain, and yeah, I just think Braden Shen's the guy. I think another guy that I see thrown into that mix is Justin Falk, just considering he was the captain of the Hurricanes, or they had a co-captain system back during the 2017 season, I believe. They had a co-captain system, which was interesting. I haven't seen that done in a while, but um, he has experience. But yeah, I think this is Shen's team now, and if we don't bring Ryan O'Reilly back, I think he is the obvious choice. So, yeah, I think also in terms of what you were saying with what we're going to do with these potential picks, I think, and I told you this earlier, the Blues aren't going into a full rebuild. So it wouldn't make a ton of sense to hold on to all of those picks because you can't wait on these guys to be in the league in like 2, 3 years. I mean, this draft is really deep, but we can't assume that the guys that go at the end of the first are going to be NHL ready talents. So I have to assume that they're going to go out and do something about it. You threw out the idea of it being a defenseman. I think that makes the most sense. That is clearly the biggest issue with our team right now. However, I do believe something has to be done with that core four on the blue line. Somebody's got to be moved out. Somebody's got to be either bought out, traded, whether it's Parayko, whether it's Krug. I'd like to see Falk stay. I think he deserves to stay. This season's been a down year for him, but he's been arguably our best defenseman for the last 2 to 3 years. So something needs to happen, but I do think you're right. Defenseman makes the most sense, and 100% think a move is made with those picks. And yeah, we'll see one if we get another one with Barbashev. That'd be insane.
Yeah, I also think going back with the O'Reilly thing, we are a team that has not had any cap space within the last few years. So I think the big thing is just utilizing that. You saw the Wild were able to get pretty much a free fourth round pick because they had cap space to make to be that third team in a deal. So I think, um, you saw Riley less than half a point per game this year. Kind of regressed, but the whole team did. So I don't really blame him. I think he'll be back to close to a point per game with the Leafs. But I think the big thing is getting rid of one of those defensemen. I would personally rather have Krug gone. Or if you want to get rid of Perunovic, because he, as much as I hate to say it, he's had some injury history. Um, and just adding him maybe in a Chikrin deal, as long as you can extend the guy, then I think you got to do what you got to do. I don't like the thought of trading for Chikrin. I don't like it at all. But if that means we can trade Krug or a defenseman with some term to the Coyotes for Chikrin, I think then we might have to pull the trigger on something like that. But I'm not too sure. And the age does kind of fit what Army's looking for. So yeah, I don't think that we'd be the team to bid the most on Chikrin, but I think we might now be in the mix with our uh, picks for the next couple of years.
Yeah, 100%. And adding on to that Chikrin talk, definitely puts us in the conversation. I agree with you. I don't think it makes a ton of sense. With the Blues now and Doug Armstrong making it clear, like we are officially going into this retool. We are selling off assets, like he's embraced it. The Blues are going to retool for the next 1 to 2 seasons, is what they hope. From the presser, he sees a team like the Kings, which I know Blues Views was saying doesn't make a ton of sense as a comparable because he believes that we have more current players on the team that are like NHL talent that can like get us to like in contention faster, which I believe. But like, let's say this takes 2 seasons to kind of figure out, and then we're back into contending. By the time that is done, Chikrin is going to need a new contract, and then he almost prices himself out. I mean, assuming he continues with his good play, that I mean, he's been really good this year. We know he's had some really good seasons in the past, so count that into the equation too. I mean, let's say we're contending by 2025, he's going to need a new contract, and that's another massive contract on the blue line. And like, who knows if we'll be able to afford that? Probably not. So I don't think it makes a ton of sense. Hopefully, we can find a hidden gem defenseman. We've been able to find hidden gems on offense, and I guess kind of really our only hidden gems on defense were guys that we drafted and traded away, like Wallman and Vince Dunn. But you got to hope for a guy to either find a guy or a guy like Tyler Tucker becomes insane, and then we can use that money to go out and make another move on offense or defense. But yeah, I don't really know what he's going to do with those picks, but it's definitely an exciting time after some brutal weeks of being a Blues fan where we really had no idea what the plan was for the Blues' future, and we didn't know if Armstrong was going to embrace the sell or if this three-game win streak kind of gave him some false hope. So it's an exciting time. I'm very, very excited. After the trades that have taken place in the last 2 weeks, I haven't felt this way in a while, especially this season. So um, I know you're excited, and yeah, we'll see what he does.
Yeah, as long as we
Is there
don't
anything
pull
else
a
that you got?
20, as long as we don't pull a 2015 Bruins, then I'll be content with these first, no doubt.
That
But
would be unbelievable, es-
yeah,
especially in this deep of a draft. Well, I mean, that's
yeah,
how the 2015 was too.
yep. So if we can at least get one superstar out of that, then I'll be fine with that. But yeah, I think
Yep.
a lot to look forward to. Um, these will be some tough games to watch for the rest of the year, but somehow we always be in the mix, and I would not be surprised if we're like maybe 8 points out of a playoff spot at some point. But yeah, I'm not too sure. We always find a way, so our an
Yep.
army will have
Hey,
something up its sleeve at some point too.
yeah. Hey, Blues can win all they want, but as long as all the moves are made at the deadline, I don't care. So,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely an exciting time. But if there's nothing else you got to include, I think that's all the time that we have for today. But before we sign off, we'd like to give two quick shout outs to some of our boys participating in the face off on the lake. Ohio State, Cole McWard and Stephen Holiday. Shout out to those guys right now taking on Michigan. We're about to
yeah.
go watch the rest of that game and go
Oh, they
Bucks.
just they just won.
Oh, it's over. Oh, it's over.
Steve-O and Cole got a goal. They each
No
scored. So
way.
yeah, yeah,
That's
it's great.
insane.
So yeah,
Let's
definitely a
go.
fun game. But if you saw me eyeing up at something that was at the game. So yeah, but
That's hype.
yeah, I was gonna go, but couldn't make it work this weekend. But yeah,
Yeah.
well, thank
All
you for
right.
tuning in. Hopefully, everything awaits lifted off our shoulders, and we can have a good end to the year. Hopefully, stay bottom 10 so we can at least have a chance at Bedard, or at least a second.
Absolutely. We will hope for the best. Yeah, as Beck mentioned, thank you guys for tuning in to episode 2 of the Beyond Blues podcast. You can find these posted on YouTube as well as Spotify and Apple Music. Also, make sure to check us out on social media, Instagram and Twitter at Beyond Blues Pod. But yeah, we appreciate you guys. And let's go Blues and let's hope for the best. So, signing off, I'm Zach Kinsella, and joining me is Beck Markarian, and we will talk to you guys next time.